What are northern Fulani hunters really doing in the south? Once again, Nigeria finds itself at a dangerous crossroads, and once again the north is playing the victim, while issuing threats of revenge. The recent killing of 16 so-called northern hunters in Uromi, Edo State, has sparked outrage from northern groups. They're warning of retaliation and urging northerners to leave the south. But before we get swept up in the noise, there's one critical question we need to ask. What were these hunters really doing in the south? The north has some of the largest forests in Nigeria: Sambisa Forest in Borno, Rugu Forest in Katsina, Kuyanbana Forest in Zamfara, Kamuku Forest in Kaduna, Falgore Forest in Kano, and Alawa Forest in Niger State. These are vast areas filled with wildlife. If these were genuine hunters, why would they bypass all these natural hunting grounds to travel hundreds of miles to Uromi in Edo State? What exactly were they hunting? History is repeating itself before our eyes, but too many people are failing to recognize the pattern. What's happening today in the south mirrors what happened in Hausa land before the Fulani conquest. The original Hausa people had ruled themselves for centuries with strong kingdoms and rich cultural identities. But the Fulani didn't arrive with open war. They came through deception. They presented themselves as peaceful visitors, eventually becoming scholars and clerics, pretending to be religious reformers. They gained the trust of Hausa rulers. But behind the scenes, they were organizing, plotting, and preparing for takeover. When the time was right, they launched the Fulani Jihad of 1804 under Usman Dan Fodio. The same Hausa kings who had welcomed them were overthrown. Their lands were taken, their people enslaved. Today, the Hausa are only a shadow of their former selves. Their language, culture, and identity have been absorbed into the Fulani-dominated Sokoto Caliphate. Now that same process is creeping into southern Nigeria. The Fulani came first as herders, pretending to be harmless cattle rearers. Then came the bandits and kidnappers, terrorizing communities. Now they show up as hunters, supposedly in search of wild animals. But those who know history understand what usually follows. This isn't an isolated incident, it's part of a bigger plan. The North has a track record of making threats and then carrying out mass violence. We've seen it before. 1966 pogrom. They claimed the Igbos plotted a coup, and over 30,000 Igbos were slaughtered. 1980 Kano riots. They said southern businesses were taking over. More than 5,000 southerners were killed. 2000 Kaduna Sharia riots. They claimed Christians opposed Sharia law, leading to the deaths of over 2,000 people, mostly Igbos. 2011 post-election violence. After losing the election, they unleashed chaos in Kano, Kaduna, and Bauchi. 2020 End SARS protests. Northern thugs were sent to attack peaceful protesters in Lagos and Abuja, destroying businesses and killing southerners. Now, after Uromi, they're once again threatening bloodshed. If history has taught us anything, it's that these warnings are never empty. Instead of calling for calm, northern leaders are talking about revenge. Instead of asking why their so-called hunters were in Uromi in the first place, they're justifying violence. The Concerned Northern Forum, CNF, has already advised northerners to leave the south. That's a red flag. In 1966, similar warnings preceded one of Nigeria's bloodiest massacres. Biafrans and southerners must not fall for the same tricks. These so-called hunters weren't looking for antelope, they were on a much bigger mission. If we fail to recognize the signs, we may one day wake up to find our lands overtaken. The Fulani strategy has always followed the same pattern: arrive as guests, settle as neighbors, dominate as rulers. That's what happened to the Hausa people, and it can happen to us too, if we're not vigilant. The forests in the north remain largely empty, yet they're sending hunters to the south. These are not hunters. They are foot soldiers of a larger agenda. This is no time for complacency. This is the time to wake up, ask the hard questions, and stay prepared. What happened in Uromi wasn't just a tragic event, it was a test. And if we fail this test, the consequences could be devastating.